Welcome back, everybody. It's time for our Grassroots Citizens panel. Joining me in studio, as he did previously, is Eric Schiffer. Eric, Washington Times columnist, pop culture pundit, as well as a social media expert in cybersecurity. I was not aware of that until today. In studio, as he was previously, is Barry Nussbaum. Barry is the founding member of the Israel Group. Thank you, Barry. Also in studio, how fitting this is, ladies and gentlemen, Vought. Will, former Clinton White House intern.
Correct.
No, it does not look like Monica Lewinsky. That could be a different
Oh, my goodness. I thought I was trying to work out.
So, former White House Clinton intern, you're a comedian.
Correct.
You also you write for the Late Late Show on CBS.
Correct.
And I can't wait to get your take on some of this. I don't know if you heard, the Clintons are in the news lately.
The Clintons are in the news. It's the gift that keeps on giving, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Also joining us from Washington, D.C. is Shelby Emmett. Shelby is with the group Project 21. Shelby, good to see you.
Hi, how are you?
Doing terrific. Let's hit our first topic and start with our social media cyber warfare expert, Eric Schiffer. Eric, it doesn't pass the smell test, what Hillary is saying. You know, on the one hand, she's telling us that she is so unsophisticated that she thought she had to have more than one device in order to have multiple email addresses. On the other hand, she found a way to delete 31,000 email off her server, which takes some sophistication.
Yeah, there's no question there's a lot of sophistication at play here. The big question is what was at issue in terms of the ability for them to parse her emails, meaning these international countries that we're at war with. For the first 3 months when they registered that email, it was unsecure. So, for instance, you've got to put in a digital certificate when you actually have your own email server. My guys did some searching. The first 90 days, there was no digital certificate, which means that the email was unsecure. And even if you put a digital certificate at a later point, a man in the middle, which is what it's called, could attach themselves post facto after it's been secured. And anything that would be in there that would be considered classified is actually available to someone to be able to hack. So there's a national security concern to the extent that she had information that was considered severely classified. Now there's, as you know, classified
different categories.
So the question is was she more careful with what she put on there? But to me, that's the most salient issue here, because she wouldn't be the first one that was using email outside of
that's right.
A public environment.
No, and she fired or forced the resignation of the former U.S. ambassador to Kenya because he was doing it. Will Vought, former White House intern under the Clinton White House.
Yeah.
This reminds me of, Ron Fournier of National Journal said it best, the 90s called, and they want their PR tactics back from the Clintons.
This is just another example of the conservatives trying to attack and destroy the Clintons.
Is this the comedian coming out of Will?
No, I'm just saying, it's, first of all, the server belonged to President Clinton, and
who sent 2 emails in his lifetime, according to his
and I do know that there was a conversation that took place where, whoa, wait a second. We're not going to give the server with my emails on it. But let's hit the facts. Okay, the facts are that Hillary Clinton has not done anything differently than any of her predecessors. Every single Secretary of State that held the office up until John Kerry had done the same thing. Policy adjusted a little bit with John Kerry.
So you are in the minority on the left. You're perfectly fine. Nothing happened out of the ordinary here.
I'm saying, okay, so we're questioning the trustworthiness of Hillary Clinton. Do we trust her? Why should we trust her? Was she the first lady twice?
Let's go to Shelby. I'm going to see you shaking your head no. We're not going to get a straight answer out of Will Vought. Can we get a crooked one out of you?
Well, I first want to make something clear. First, this isn't something that every single Secretary of State does. If you actually look back at the Bush administration, Condoleezza Rice always used her state government public affairs account. She never used her private account. So to sit there and say, oh, well, they all do it, so who cares? This is typical Clinton behavior. But I also think that this is something being projected and pushed by the left, by the Obama crew maybe, just like I think a lot of this other stuff that you see with Senator Mendez, although wrong, is being pushed because they're disagreeing with Obama. I think Hillary's been used and beaten up by the Democrats and used to get along, and now they're making sure to get rid of her to make room for Elizabeth Warren. I think it's very obvious, and of course she's hiding stuff because it's 32,000 emails that we can't see. So So we should assume the worst because it's the Clintons.
Assume the worst.
Before we go to Barry, let me ask you, Will. You said it's all right-wing talking points. The article was put out. The news was put out by the New York Times and the Washington Post.
I think that Hillary Clinton addressed almost every major point yesterday in the
New York Times and the Washington Post put this out.
I understand that, and that's representative of journalistic objectivity.
Oh, it sure is. And you're okay with the fact that she says you only need one. I didn't want to carry two devices.
Right. Well, listen, I mean, I'm okay with the fact that every other Secretary of State has done the same thing. We're saying there's 30,000 emails that she's earmarking as personal. We have never had this level of scrutiny for any other Secretary of State.
Here's the difference, is that they never had their own private server.
But she funneled all those emails prior to sending them to a StateDepartment.gov channel, which was within the protocol.
There's a really important thing that we're not talking about.
Bill Clinton.
No, the Clinton Foundation.
That's right.
During this entire history of her service in the State Department, which she said her private email server was okay by the State Department, which, by the way, the head of the State Department is the Secretary of State, so she approved her own system.
Did you bring, are these some of the emails from Hillary Clinton's?
I've got more.
I know.
During that period, the Clinton Foundation received tens of millions of dollars from foreign governments. All the correspondence with those foreign governments is all of a sudden not available. There's 2 studies out right now that say the average person gets between 130 to 150 emails a day. She turned over 37 emails a day. Where are the other 100 to 200? They're all gone. They can't be all personal. They can't all be on wedding plans and personal business.
But can I just say this? If somebody called you up, break, and said, "Listen, I'm going to go public in the media and I'm going to accuse you of tax fraud unless you provide me with every single email that you've sent in the last 10 years," what kind of a position does that put you in? Because that's exactly what's happening.
No, there's a huge difference. She's a public servant.
We have to remember here, though, too, that she's Secretary of State here. This isn't a personal email just between you and your ex-girlfriend. This is Secretary of State, a woman that claims she's qualified to be president.
You're right.
I know
She's
disrespect,
Secretary of
Mrs.
State.
Clinton, but if you can't handle
And every
two
other
cell
Secretary of
phones,
State has done the
you're
same
not
thing, and we
qualified.
haven't asked them to do
And
this.
wants to be the next
But
president.
no, they haven't done every other single same thing. They
There's
have
never
not.
been a
Condoleezza Rice
situation
did not keep a
with this
personal
much money
server
coming in
her
from
home.
foreign governments that we can't investigate because the emails won't be
We're going to
turned
go right
over.
there. We continue on the other side of the break. President Barack Obama's national security strategy, his foreign policy strategy, rears its ugly head again, this time in the form of Cuba. We'll cover that next. Don't go anywhere. We're back after this. The Obama White House foreign policy, national security strategy rears its ugly head once again. Where have they had any success, folks? Was it in Iraq, where they removed 10,000 troops and ISIS filled the vacuum? Was it in Libya, where they helped remove Muammar Gaddafi? Now we see what's happened there. Or was it in Yemen, President Obama's so-called success story, which is now overrun by his radicals, led by Iran? Or is it in Ukraine? Or is it in Egypt, where they propped up the Muslim Brotherhood president, only to be overthrown by the Egyptian people? Now, President Obama decides to normalize relations with Cuba. All right, sounds like maybe some people are on board with that. I'll start with Eric Schiffer. Some people are on board with that. Turns out they come out and say that they, being the White House, says that Venezuela is a national security threat. Cuba comes out and backs Venezuela. You would think if they had an ounce of respect for the White House, an ounce of we'll meet you halfway, they wouldn't embarrass America, or at least President Obama, in this way.
Well, this concerned them because what happened is that they targeted specific individuals. So this was not a country-specific sanction.
Right. Yeah.
These were individuals. These were police officers and certain high-ranking senior people within either the administration or the like. And so that was... rightly, there's a common question about, is this imperialistic? I can understand that. We don't know all the facts. We don't know whether some of these allegations are true, that they were continuing to cause harm to innocent people, et cetera, et cetera. That's the difference. And so I think that there's a concern by Cuba that this could happen to certain individuals highly ranked within Cuba.
It's what we're doing with Russia.
Look, it's part of the warfare that goes on. It works. Governments are run by people, especially and these individuals flex based upon it. We did it with Russia with the oligarchs. It helped to flex. It will help in Venezuela, and Cuba is running to support them, and we'll see how much that support really means.
Yeah, I think it means very little, but it's interesting on a perception level that your newfound friend is coming out against you. Let's go to Shelby Emmett. Shelby, I support the White House in this new tactic. I would prefer to target corrupt, wealthy individuals than go to war with a nation. But I would expect Cuba to at least be quiet if they disagree with what their new partner is doing.
Well, I don't expect Cuba to act any way, shape, or form. I mean, Cuba's going to do what Cuba's going to do, which is why I don't agree with the president trying to open up relations with Cuba. I feel like the president is always giving and giving and giving and never expecting much of anything. But it is nice to see allies that are supposed to be allies supporting each other. I think it's something the president should look into. I feel with our own policy, he's done everything he can to bend over backwards for people that don't like us and has kind of left our friends and neighbors by themselves. So at least it's good to see in our hemisphere anyway. We know who's working together and we know that they're loyal to each other. And I think America should try it.
Will Vought, as a supporter of this president, are you embarrassed that he's gone out of his way to say what a great partner Cuba is, and then they turn their back on him?
No. I'm not personally embarrassed. No. And I'm actually glad that they opened Cuba. I think that it had been closed for far too long. And I would like a cigar.
All right, Barry.
I'll tell you, the thing that strikes me about it the most, Rick, is this is an example of Obama foreign policy where I'll give you what you want and I won't ask for anything in return.
That's right.
It seems that there doesn't ever require a quid pro quo in a foreign policy. We're in the process of giving everything to Cuba that Cuba has asked for, and I have yet to find out what we're getting in return, with the exception of the release of one person, which is not a bad thing, and I applaud that. But it seems as though you would respect the agreement that's just going into place, such that there would be a little bit of softening of the hardline communist dictatorship from Fidel Castro.
Absolutely.
It's not being workshopped. You know what I mean? And we're workshopping right now. It's just been 2.5 months since we said we were going to open it up. You know, I mean, we're workshopping.
All the more reason for Cuba to not come out and disagree with their newfound friend. All right, next topic. Barron's. They made our Mama Luke on the list of the day list twice this week. Barron's Advanced Placement Test Guide prepares students for their SATs. They listed Clarence Thomas as a fascist and put him on a chart with the KKK. Now they apologize and say, well, there's a spacing issue.
Spacing issue.
Let's go to Shelby Emmett.
Of course it was.
Shelby, if you are going to be gratuitous and accept Barron's apology at face value, that they had to condense the size and that's why it was misleading, then that raises other questions about the quality of their test placement guide.
Well, exactly. At a minimum, if they just misguided and didn't pay attention to this, what it says at a minimum is that they're not a good company. At a maximum, what you see a lot in society, unfortunately, is that anybody that has any type of color to their skin, but particularly Black Americans, if we at all have an opinion that is outside of what liberalism tell us is what we're allowed to think as Black people, then we're cast aside and almost seen, at least politically and in the big picture, as second-class citizens in terms of we're not thinking the way we're expected to. And I wouldn't be surprised if these people are big donors to the left, and this is what you see a lot, unfortunately. It happens all the time.
And we hear that over and over and over.
Ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. So
Hold
on. Will, 1 second. Is it ridiculous that as a Black conservative, she says that she's told that she's criticized for speaking outside the...
I think it's ridiculous to draw a parallel that Barron's, that has been, providing young people in this country the ability to try to score higher on advanced placement tests, has some secret Machiavellian agenda, and is funneling money, into a political party. I think that's ridiculous. That's my opinion.
Now, Eric...
Well, I don't think it's a secret agenda at all.
Eric, you pointed out that Barron's, there's more to the story here.
Well, I agree with my friend here that I don't think that this is a larger conspiracy. I think that that would be a little bit far-reaching. I do think, however, they vested too much power in this guy, this writer, and he took it upon himself to be a little creative.
What did he call moderates in his
To
test guide?
consider them liberals.
So in this advanced placement test guide by Barron's to prepare high school students for college exams, moderates were called what?
They were considered liberals. But again, he's viewing this through the prism of history. Okay, so not current.
Through his prism.
Through his prism or prison.
Through his prism of history, Clarence Thomas is a fascist and a member of the KKK. Oh, but wait, we had to condense it down to one page.
Well, it was an interesting oversight.
Well, have you ever worked with those programs? I mean, done the formatting for that? It's very, very confusing.
So why buy the guide in the first place if you can't get it right? Shelby, it looks like you want to weigh in again on something here.
Well, I think you got to look at the bigger exam. I mean, with the AP exam, I've taken them. They've come over criticisms for more than just this. I mean, they're known to be a very liberal-based way of doing their exams, particularly when it comes to constitutional law. I mean, this doesn't surprise me at all. Of course, they're going to put a man that doesn't token the line of what they believe to be right things in history to do that. I don't see how anyone can be surprised by this. They would have never done this to, Malcolm X, or they would have never done this to Hillary Clinton. But of course they're going to do this with the black conservative because you're always allowed to do this to black conservatives.
And we hear that over and over and over again on this show, Shelby, from those on the right who are of black heritage, saying, look, anytime I speak my mind, I get criticized, diminished, and laughed at for stepping out of line. You want to say something?
Yeah, Rick, I see it as
Well,
sort
look
of
at the Poverty Law Center.
the typical new history that rewrites history. It's true on the campuses, and it's true in preparing young people for the campuses. It starts in high school. The things that we learned in high school in civics and social studies and history have morphed into a new history and a new look at history. And the people that write that stuff, that give it to the kids, are changing the worldview towards the politics that they espouse.